Thank you everyone for tuning back in. This is my sew along for Butterick 6465. Well, here I'm going to start with stay stitching on the front panels and the back panel around the neckline. I used a magnetic guide for this to do the stay stitching because it was a smaller. They wanted you to sew within I think it's 1/8 of an inch or something on that line. You have to go by the pattern. And to stay within that, I just put the magnetic guide down so I can just glide through there. Okay, here I'm just pressing out those stay stitching because I made the stitching too long and it made like a gathering effect. So yeah, I tightened my stitches up and made the stitch length shorter, and everything started to go in place really nicely. Okay, you guys, now this blouse has 2 patch pockets to put on it. I'm not quite sure if I want to put them on there. At the end, I did not use the pockets, but I did make them up. So this is me using my guide to set it at 5/8 of an inch, and so I can stitch completely around each pocket, and it can give me that 5/8 of an inch I need to turn under to make the patch pocket uniform for both pockets. Using the guidelines that I made with the 5/8 of an inch stitching around the pocket, I used the iron to press fold over the correct amount and then press it down, and then I edge stitched the pockets just to hold it down till I got ready to put them on the blouse. Once again, I did not decide to use it on my blouse, but I did make the pockets, and so I decided to show it to you guys how the pockets were made. Okay, I'm looking at the guide sheets, and now I'm going to put the top part of the pocket onto the bottom part of the pocket. So right here, I'm taking the top flap of the pocket, and it's been interfaced, and now I'm using a 5/8 of an inch seam to sew down, and then I'm going to flip that inward and have the top of the pocket. Then once I have that pocket inward and flipped out and pressed flat, I attach it to this, seaming it to the bottom of the finished pocket after, and it's all the same size. So yeah. This is me putting the darts in the front of the blouse. It was fairly hard to do because my markings didn't turn out very well. The uh, the paper that I used didn't take very well, but I was able to see it, but it was hard to see it. So yeah, I took my time and sewed it real slow. And so I would run onto the very edge of the dart and make so it wouldn't pucker at the very point of the dart. That's the way you can make a dart not pucker, is to sew a couple of stitches right on the edge of the end of the dart. And then just tie it off. Don't back stitch it, just tie it off. Okay, I was working with that thread real gentle, but you see it broke off anyhow. So I'm having to go back over it to leave me a little tail on it. And I just went a few stitches back in and sewed it back up and left a long tail and re-tied it off. This time that was some good thread. It's Gutterman's thread, but yeah, I had a lot of trouble with it breaking. So I don't know if I got an old uh, thread or what, but yeah, it did break very easy. You saw how gently I was using you know uncurling that thread, but yet it still broke. So yeah. So here I am pressing the darts downward to the bottom of the blouse on a hem so I can make that fullness and make sure that the darts are not puckering any. So yeah, I just press it just up and down with that little steam iron. It's really handy while I am sewing. I just leave it by my machine, and I use it to yeah, sew, and it has a steam feature, and I will definitely have that in the link below. So definitely I am more pressing, not pressing there, but ironing more right there, what you saw me do with that dart. But yeah, pressing is going up and down, and ironing is going back and forth. I can't stress how important it is to iron as you go when you're making your garments or sewing. It gives that professional look that you really cannot press into the garment after you have it together. You really need to press as you go. Now this is the front facing of the garments. I've already interfaced it, and I have folded the unnotched edge down 5/8 of an inch and I pressed that down also. So this is me trying to get that lined up, the front facing to the front of the blouse with the right sides together, joining at the very top and matching the notches together. As you can see, I'm not using any pins right then and there. I try not to sew with a lot of pins because it does slow you down when you're sewing, and I always sew slowly anyhow, so I don't need anything else that will make my sewing slower. Another tip with sewing blouses, in particularly in most projects, you really need to make sure you mark all your notches, all your dots, all your squares, because that is an intricate part of putting a blouse together, because it is somewhat technical when you get around the neckline to put a well nicely placed collar in. As you can see, there I have folded the facing now to the right side. Now the 5/8 of an inch part that was pressed down is now being sewn to the front of the blouse. And I used one pin to get that in, and then I just went real slowly and attached the front to the blouse, taking my time to make sure everything was lined up neatly and evenly and straight on there, and it came out pretty nice, really did. So yeah, and I did that to the second side also. This is where I put the back pleat in the bottom part of the back of the blouse. I just folded it in, matching the notches and the dots, and sewed it down. And yeah, that was in. Now I'm putting in the yoke part of the blouse, and I'm sewing it together. Okay, this is where I'm going to be attaching the front of the blouse to the yoke. And I'll just follow the directions on the guide sheet to do that. I'm missing some parts of my video, but yeah, I just followed the guide sheet and attached them just as the guide sheet told me to. Okay, this is me putting the front of the facing and attaching to all the layers so it covers up all the seaming on the very front of the shirt. And it went in very nicely. I was really pleased with it. Okay, this is me sewing the collar, the very top of the collar together, and it was a narrow seaming, so I used my guide, magnetic guide on my machine to make sure I got it exactly the right width. I used very small stitches towards the corners so the corners would turn out really nicely, and they did. And I think I did tell you I put interfacing on both sides. So now I'm doing the bottom of the collar and I'm attaching to the top of the collar. And I did use a lot of pins there to make sure I got it right. And I also used my guide once again to sew that in. Now I get everything flipped back to the right sides out, and I used a little pointer to pull out the edges of the points to make sure they were nice and neat. And I compared the edges of the band of the collar, and they were pretty much the same. So I was really happy with that. So I went on to started putting the band of the collar onto the neckline of the blouse. And I made sure I gave everything a good pressing down. Now I'm attaching it to the neckline of the collar, and everything I just matched up the dots and the notches to everything and made sure everything fell in line, and everything did, and I was really happy with it. Okay, now that I have the band on of the neckline, I actually hand sewed the collar band down to the wrong side of the blouse because I just feel like I have more control over it, and that really I'm just used to doing it that way. And even though the guide sheet said attach it with the machine, I did it by hand. Okay, this pattern had you put the sleeves in with the flat method, which makes a really easy sleeve. There was just a slight bit of gathering in the top of the sleeve, and that's why it's really important to mark your whole dots, and you just add a row of gathering stitch, so a long basting stitch, and you were able to pull that and just gather a little bit, and just enough so you wouldn't see the gather, catch it up into your part of your shirt. And this is me sewing it in, and yeah, it went in really simply because it was a flat installation. As I was sewing the sleeves in, I made sure to stop and make sure that none of my fabric was catching on anything, and so it would be flatly installed on, just real nice flat stitching in there. Nothing caught up, no stray threads or anything caught up into the stitching line. Okay, this is me attaching the cuff to the bottom of the blouse, and the cuff is fully interfaced. Okay, you guys, that's where I lost my taping of me actually sewing the cuffs onto the sleeve. But you, after you attach the cuff to the sleeve, you sew in one continuous line. You set the start of the cuff all the way down to the bottom of the shirt. So one continuous sewing all the way down. There's a picture of it. And yeah, start from the cuff before you turn it under. And this is where you would turn it under and sew it. So going back to the pictures of my actual one, I use a binding tape to finish off my seams. And yeah, so you see I have two different color binding tape, but they both are blue. Um, and the very bottom of it, I use the binding tool to help bind to finish off that seam. And that's another look at the collar. And you guys, I want to thank you for watching my video. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate it. And definitely give me a thumbs up if you liked this video. And there's soon more to come. And make sure you subscribe and click the bell for all notifications of new videos.